Hi, honey, how are you? Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, I'm Teknikolour. Today, I'm sharing a one-bedroom fairy house that I built in Inniscreen, the world that just came with the new Enchanted by Nature expansion pack. I do a lot of building in The Sims 4 here on YouTube, so if that sounds fun and you like what you see, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. And if you'd like to help support my content in a big way, you can use my EA creator code, Teknikolour, at checkout on the EA app when grabbing Sims packs or even other EA games, like Split Fiction or Dragon Age. It gives me a small 5% commission at no extra cost to you, and it really does help me continue being able to make content like this full-time. Enchanted by Nature just released last week, and while checking out the new pack, I fell in love with the Cranamore residential lot that's in the Everdew neighborhood. This neighborhood is kind of like Fairy Central. Plus, it's where the Mossvale Fairy Hub and the Moondrop Springs are located. If you've seen Everdew before, you'll instantly recognize one of its most beautiful lots, Cranamore Residential. This lot is a literal treehouse. It's built on top of this massive tree, and you need a bridge just to access it. Plus, you can look down below at the water, and it is just superb. Well, I say superb, but then I remember that it doesn't have the best lighting to build in. Though, the way the sunlight streams through the upper branches of this treehouse lot is actually stunning. So maybe the jury's still out? Anyway, this build is sort of a limited pack build. It uses Enchanted by Nature, Cats and Dogs, and Realm of Magic. Plus, somehow a singular item each from Life and Death, My First Pet Stuff, and Everyday Clutter. I'm not entirely sure how I managed to use just one item from each of those three, but if you don't have those packs, you'd need to just replace a pet bowl, hanging tote bags, and a range hood. Actually, you could possibly still use this build if you don't have Realm of Magic, because I only use a handful of items from that pack here, but I personally think it's worth it just for the appliances and cauldron alone on the back patio. If you've been following the channel, you'll know that recently I have been attempting to push myself out of my comfort zone when it comes to building. And today's build really did that, because I'm still not super familiar with all of the items in Enchanted by Nature. Actually, I finished this build and then was watching a friend build using the pack and saw them using an item I swear didn't come from the pack until I reopened my game and found that balcony item just hiding there in plain sight. So there's no balconies in this build, but I'll have to use that sneaky item in the future. So one of the things I wanted to focus on with this build was playing around with roofing, because the pack comes with those cute grassy roof swatches. You can essentially make your own hobbit home with this roof swatch, because we also just got the base game update that gives us the ability to slot landscaping items onto roof pieces. I tried this with 2 objects and then decided I'd come back to it later, which I did, to remove those 2 objects. I think maybe roof decorating is something I'll have to work my way up to, since I'm still trying to perfect the craft of landscaping in general. But the thing that I wanted to attempt here with my roof was to add some curvature and play around with that to still have each roof piece connect together seamlessly. They don't, so I will definitely need to work on improving this skill, but I think for mostly trying curved roofs for the first time, I did pretty good. While you can technically curve roof pieces on their own, you can unlock extra curvature options if you have a roof piece selected and use the shortcut key Shift-C. This is where a lot of trial and error came into play, trying to make the curves all match each other. And while it was a fun and challenging exercise, it was also destined to be cut out of this speed build for timing purposes. This would be a much longer video if I had left that in, and you might have even clicked off by this point otherwise. But you're still here, right? Anyway, around this point of the speed build, you can see that we've moved inside and are working on the kitchen. It took me a little while to figure out the plan here because I really wanted to do something funky with the countertop seating because I had seen another friend build with the pack and used some of the cabinet pieces that have open shelving. It looked beautiful, but no matter what I tried, it wasn't working in this space. So I opted for a peninsula-based setup, though I did eventually add in one open shelved cabinet in a corner next to the fridge. I knew that I wanted the sink to be under that big window that overlooks the front of the lot. So even though it takes me a concerning amount of time to actually add in the sink itself, please trust me that it does in fact make its grand entrance later on. This meant that I was sort of forced into putting the oven on the side wall because I didn't want to move the other window that looks out onto the porch. I just shifted the left side window down a bit closer to the countertop seating and placed the ceiling to floor cabinet and made the perfect little nook for our beautiful antique Realm of Magic range. I think because a lot of this expansion pack's build style feels super natural and themed, the older style appliances fit in so much better than most of the newer ones. And since we have the refrigerator kind of off to the side, it made that tiny space between the kitchen and the front door feel like it was welcoming you in. So I added a mushroom shelf and a pet bowl that also looks like it was made out of a tree trunk. So adorable. In last week's video, I really liked how I made the dining room an extension of the foyer or entrance to the build. I think it made the build itself look super inviting and cozy because likely, one of the first things you'd see after walking in the door is people gathered around the table enjoying a meal. So I quickly plopped down some dining furniture over to the left and got to work starting on the living room. Again, most of the televisions feel kind of out of place to me with the items from Enchanted by Nature, so I actually opted for one of the winter event reward items we received. It's another one of those framed TV items that looks like artwork until the TV is in use. Since the living room is pretty spacious here, I added 2 couches on either side of the fireplace with a coffee table between them. Then 2 armchairs on the other end across from the fireplace to sort of close off the space. There's probably some fancy interior design term for this kind of setup that I am wholly unaware of, but I call this the Big Brother living room setup. I've been a fan of that reality show since its 4th season, and they're already somehow on season 27. Are you watching this season? I'm super into this Hotel Mystere theme they've got going on, and I can't wait to see how the rest of the summer plays out. But anyway, I ended up not liking how the dining room looked just behind the living room, especially after adding in a desk near the door to the back patio. I feel like a lot of my builds tend to feel very linear and almost modular, kind of like each area is separate and completely individual, which can sometimes feel a bit stiff. So I saw an opportunity here and just went for it. I turned the table on a diagonal and kind of put it in a spot that blocks the natural path from the front door to the living room. Now, it sort of forces 2 paths around the table, and I think better embodies that feeling I was going for, where the dining area becomes more of the heart of the space. I feel like I need to start embracing things like this in my future builds, because it feels way more organic this way. Once I took a step back from the build, I decided that the roof still felt a bit boring or unoriginal to me. I quickly grabbed the little awning piece I had over the front door, duplicated it, and made these sort of dormers around the entire second floor. I think this is when I started to feel more excited and confident about this build. I also sized up the new chimney, which is already kind of whimsical with its bumpiness, but sized up really makes it look magical. This is also where I began my short, ill-fated attempt at landscaping the roof. This might be a good moment to go a little off topic and mention that I actually have a shell challenge out right now. We're getting closer and closer to the deadline, July 26th, which is when I'll also tour the submitted gallery submissions over on my Twitch stream. If you want to know a little bit more about the shell challenge, I'll drop a link in the description below to a video I made about it a few weeks back. Also, I just want to quickly plug my Twitch channel here as well. If you're unfamiliar with Twitch, it's sort of similar to YouTube in that you can see other The Sims 4 content, like builds or gameplay, but also tons of other gaming and non-gaming content. I typically stream 3 days a week, one day for adventure and role-playing games, another for community or more interactive games, and another solely for my The Sims Legacy Challenge. Plus, thanks to the EA Creator Network, I occasionally get to show off early previews of packs and even run giveaways. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, I'll drop a link to that down below too. No pressure if that's not your thing, but I just thought I'd mention it. Back to the build though, I spent a little bit of time using the new wall coverings we received from this pack. They're the leafy sort of curtain-like objects that are weirdly not considered window coverings and are categorized as wall objects. I think they probably tagged them this way because they aren't just for indoors and honestly look really nice both indoors and outdoors. So I spent some time using them above the windows on the exterior of the build before I sprinkled a couple of them on the inside to act as curtains as well. We also spent a little time in the living room playing around with the new bookcases that are built into actual trees. They size down pretty well, which is what I did here since I'm on short wall height. Moving upstairs, I decided that 2 of those larger windows simply were not going to cut it. So I spent some time trying to figure out how to let in more natural light since we only have access to one wall. After trying around a few different combinations, I settled on adding one big picture window in the center and right above the front door. At first, I thought doing this would detract from the build, but I'm convinced it did the exact opposite and brings so much more character to it. However, this did mean that I really needed to focus on a logical floor plan for this level. I wasn't sure if I wanted this to be a 1-bedroom home or not, but having those windows in the center and really only in the front of the build kind of made the decision for me. So I shifted the stairwell landing a little bit, and then behind it added space for an ensuite bathroom. The bedroom itself is still quite large though. To help make the space feel less empty, I decided to add in a little seating area and a fireplace. Since I hated the way the bed looked in front of the window, probably because of the canopy itself would hide the window, I moved the bed to the far wall. There's enough space for a nightstand on each side of the bed and room to get into the bathroom. For a brief moment, I even considered adding a crib to the foot of the bed, but changed it to an ottoman or bench item. I tend to do this a lot in my primary bedrooms, which makes me think that growing up, my parents might have had their hope chest at the foot of their bed, which sort of acted as a big bench. After that, I added in a couch, 2 chairs, and a coffee table. Before moving to that small space by the stairwell, I felt like this was the perfect little spot for a fireplace. And since I'm using the stone wallpaper on the exterior walls, bringing it inside here and using the matching fireplace made it feel like it would definitely help warm up the space in a cozy way. This led me to finally painting all of the interior walls. Am I the only person who typically leaves this until the end of the build? I think I like to pick out all of the furnishings and decorate before I decide to get attached to dressing up my interior walls. I'm not entirely sure why, but I also have been avoiding the pretty forest backdrop wallpaper we got in this pack. I loved wallpapers like this in Animal Crossing New Horizons, but only if I could make it look like a statement wall or make it feel realistic. Why do I feel the need to do that? Why can't I just decorate with a pretty wallpaper, even if it doesn't feel like it's real? This is the fairy pack, not outdoor retreat or something. So I embraced it in the bedroom, and I think it looks fantastic. And since I cut so much of my roofing experimenting out of this speed build, I've even left in the bathrooms in this video. What a treat, right? I usually cut these out because I feel like they're not that interesting. And how can you really make a bathroom look that different from any other? But again, this is the fairy pack and the new items are actually really beautiful. I even played around with a bit of the tiled backsplash backdrop wall item to make the tub part of the room tiled in the ensuite. Plus, I added some floral, vine flourishes, and eventually some wall lighting to the main level bathroom. I even used the new glass wallpaper to separate the shower from the toilet space in there. I also spent this time choosing the flooring and adding some other decorations. I fell in love with the mirror that I added near the dining table because I added another one of those leafy wall items to it, and a window box that just makes it look almost like it's a magical portal or something. This is around where I also decided that I finally needed to do something with that random hallway I have on the left-hand side of the build. I added this because one of the lots in Enchanted by Nature has a little area like this, and I was just so taken with it and had never seen something like it. I'm not quite sure my version has the same charm as the build that's featured in the pack, but I thought it was cute and added in some windows that get progressively smaller as they make their way up the staircase. I also added in a window on that exterior wall because it was painfully boring before. I even tried making the wall that's part of the back patio into a glass wall, but felt like it really didn't look great with the roof. This back patio, I think, feels so magical, and not just because I added in the cauldron from Realm of Magic as the grill. Like, imagine living here with a fairy or spellcaster or both, a cute little cat. Ugh, I can't. This is also where I decided I needed to bring in a bit more of the items from Cats and Dogs to really make it worth using that pack in this build. So the table is from that pack, and so is the bar item. At least, I think it is. The new outdoor chandelier, which I think is only considered an outdoor chandelier because it animates up and down when in live mode, also adds to the character of this backspace. I decided to include yet another fireplace out here, and since it matches the wallpaper, I think it really helps to look built in. I took the opportunity to also add in a few more touches, like a pet toy box and bed, some apothecary items, including the new apothecary table. So there's actually 2 on this lot. Now, don't laugh at me, but I also did my own little built-in aquarium trick that I do in so many of my builds. I'm a sucker for it. What can I say? I basically just tucked an aquarium behind the staircase and then added 2 windows to the wall to look into it. It adds to the whimsy. But you could do this with pretty much any build style as long as you can find the right window to use. You're going to laugh, but here at the end stages of the build is where I finally remembered to put in that kitchen sink. I knew it was missing and still needed to be included, but it was almost like I was playing a sick little game with myself to see how long I could go before adding it. This coming from a builder who has forgotten to add important items, like a fridge, to his builds before. I spend some time here adding some little decor items to really help build out the kitchen, and might I add that it took everything in me not to use the kitchen clutter kit. I even refrained from using Home Chef Hustle or Businesses and Hobbies, so we did without a cookbook stand. Sims team, this is my official request for you to add a cookbook stand to every pack release. Please and thank you. You can honestly tell when I'm getting towards the end of a build because I start adding in all the clutter and other items I somehow overlooked before, like indoor curtains or leaves in this case, and start to decorate the front porch area. I didn't want to use fencing for the low walls here, so that's why I'm using half walls, even though I pretty much hate the majority of the trims for half walls, including this one. However, it presented a unique opportunity for me to decorate the top of those half walls with some of the tiny plants we got with Enchanted by Nature. This is also around the point where I remembered that rugs exist and should be used. Moving on to landscaping, which I am honestly surprised I had room for since I almost built to the edges of the lot and even did some terrain manipulation. I really wanted to add in that beautiful tree they used a lot of in the rest of the world of Innisgreen, which I recently found out from my Twitch chat is not related to a weeping willow, my favorite tree, and is actually a tree with Spanish moss hanging from it. Still beautiful, but two completely unrelated things. I also added in a couple of bushes and grass as well as a debug cluster of mushrooms from Realm of Magic. Terrain manipulation is not something I'm super comfortable with, and I did not playtest this build. So I honestly have no idea if this pathway to the back of the house is technically accessible by your Sims. If it's not, I assume it'd be an easy fix with either stairs or a better terrain manipulation. I think these are definitely areas I need to keep working on, and I know eventually I'll be a pro. I also used another item from that winter event we had that the TV I used is also from. It's the hedges that have fairy lights on them, which I thought was perfect for a fairy build. I basically used these few items around the entire build, and I think it's okay, but I have to ask, how would you have landscaped this build? I really want to learn and understand how I can improve, so please share your tips and ideas in the comments. I should also mention here that if you were at my Twitch streams last week, checking out my early access playthrough of the pack, thank you. I really appreciate it. And thanks again to EA for making it possible and allowing me to give a copy of the pack away during our release day party stream. If you enjoyed me doing Sims gameplay, I am live with The Sims playing my pack-based Legacy Challenge every Thursday morning. Currently, we're living in Sulani and therefore focusing on island living, but our next generation is dangerously close to taking the reins. He's already a teen. I can't believe it. He's also a mermaid, so if you like occult gameplay, you might still enjoy watching me play my Legacy Challenge. I also play other games like Styx, Split Fiction, and American Truck Simulator, so I just thought I'd mention it. But I promise I'll stop plugging my own content now. At this point in the build, we're really just putting all of the last-minute clutter down and adding in some minor last-minute details. I know that speed builds can be pretty hard to follow, what with the camera moving around pretty quickly, so why don't we hop on into the game and I can give you a little tour. So this is the Cranamore residential lot, and it's literally built on top of a tree. I honestly think that this build came out beautifully, and I really hope you think so too. But this is the full tour. Once you come up the front porch and into the house itself, on the left, you have like a little drop-off space and bookcase, and you can go upstairs, or over here on the right, you have the dining room that's kind of just like welcoming you into the space. And then you have a little office area, you have the living room, and then tucked over here in the front is the kitchen. You do have access to the bathroom here, and there is also a door here to get into that backyard space, which I'll go over in a minute. Once you've gone upstairs though, there is this apothecary table on this landing, and you have the bathroom over here. But this is the bedroom, and I think it just looks so whimsical and cozy, and I would love to have Sims playing in here. Back downstairs though, I just want to show you that this basically acts as a pathway into the backyard. And in this little area, you have the apothecary table for skill building. You also have the cabinet for storage. And then back here is that lovely back patio where you can grill in the cauldron. And you have this nice fireplace over here and just another space for your Sims to gather and eat. Don't forget to use my creator code Teknikolour if you're planning on grabbing Enchanted by Nature, Cats and Dogs, or any other Sims packs. While it isn't a discount code for you, it does help take a small portion of your sale out of EA's pockets and helps to support my channel and keeps content like this coming. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to download this build, you can grab it off the gallery using my EA account ID, Teknikolour. Remember, if you want the bonus digital content, you have until August 21st to order the pack. But if you're holding out for a sale, stay strong. You've got this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. But I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.